Hello there. Today's video is actually changing my driver's side door card. So this is actually something I've been meaning to do for a while, as I've had these cards hanging about for a while. They were supplied to me by a friend of mine, so thank you very much, Mark. These are now actually going to be fitted to the car, or this one is anyway. So the door card I've got here to replace my driver's side door card, which has got quite ripped vinyl at the bottom of the card itself, is from a vehicle that's got manual windows, whereas my vehicle has electric windows. So the basic shape of the card is the same, but there are some sort of detail changes that you need to do to the card itself in order to make it fit properly. The first order of business, though, was to attend to this bit of vinyl that's coming away at the bottom. And for that I used a bit of Gorilla Glue and then a many clothes pegs to actually get it to fit and stick. So I actually started with a few here, and as you sort of go along you actually find that you need more and more. Now the problem, or well, not the problem, one of the side effects of Gorilla Glue is it dries, but it sort of produces this sort of weird foamy type substance. It's almost sort of like hardened foam when it's dried, and that can sort of lead to sort of an unsightly bobbly bit on the actual card itself. So what I did to get rid of this was I used a sharp knife, in this case a sort of Stanley knife type thing, and then just sort of cut straight down the card to actually get rid of these, and that seemed to actually do the trick. The next stage, once you've actually got all of these pegs in place, is to actually leave it for approximately 24 hours, which I did. And once that's actually done, you're then ready to move on to the next stage. As you can see here, it's beginning to set, but I wanted to leave it for just that little bit longer. With some of these older wooden pegs, I found that some of the wood actually came off the peg itself, so do be prepared for breakages. If anything, I would try to use the plastic pegs. So the next order of business is to remove the old door card, and to do that you just pop out the trim around the door handle, and then, as you can see I'm doing here, trying to hold the camera at the same time as doing this, take off the actual armrest, which has the Windows switch pack on it. So you'll actually need to take the wiring connector off the switch pack, which I was doing here. So it's quite tightly in there, so you do need to give it a little bit of patience to actually get it off. You then have 3 screws holding the card on, and those are located, as you can see, in the positions that I'm showing you. I also showed you the position of the hidden screw, which is at the 3rd point on the card itself. Now manual window door cards don't actually have that 3rd screw, and there is a plastic locating point on the back of the door, on the door itself, which allows you to fit that. Removing is literally just lifting the card up and popping it off. Obviously before that you just need to pull it gently from the bottom and all around just to release those plug pins which are holding it in, but once they pop off you can actually get the card off. Now what we were focusing on there was the 2 cards side by side. So we had the manual window card and we had the power window card. So the first thing I'm doing here is I'm actually removing all of the plastic front panels from the card which had the manual windows. So it's basically the card from the manual door card itself. And what I'm doing now is I'm just lining up the cards themselves, and I'm drawing an outline around the original driver's side electric card onto the manual card, and then using a very sharp knife to cut the cardboard out. Now what I didn't want to do was to go too far down where I actually started to go into the cloth material itself. So I was a little bit careful with that and made sure that I just cut the cardboard away. What I've also done as well is I've marked out extra fitting holes which were located on my card, on the driver's card, which are not present on this card, which came from a manual window equipped vehicle, as I said before. Once I'd got rid of the cardboard, I then went on to the top side and I cut the fabric away. But what I actually did was I left a bit of the fabric overhanging, So what you can do is you can then use some suitable glue just to glue that in place, and make sure that it is obviously sort of in place and not going to go anywhere. Obviously that's optional. I managed to get away without it, but it is certainly worth doing. I then made a note of some of the other holes that I'd missed and sort of did an outline of the holes there. And obviously the next stage was to get the drill out and actually sort of drill those holes. Now, one thing I'll say in advance, as we just sort of watch me cutting out the additional hole for the electric window loom and other bits and pieces, is you want to drill just the cardboard itself. You don't want to go into the fabric, because there's this there is this strange sort of fiberglassy material behind it. It's probably not fiberglass, it's just sort of like some like foam or fabric or something, which can actually sort of get sort of tied up or sort of screwed up in the bit of the drill. And what that can do is it just cause a bit of an issue when you're trying to drill it. So what I actually did was or in this case my son actually, who came to help, we drilled just into the cardboard itself, and then we went behind where we drilled into the cardboard and just sort of got rid of any sort of screwed up or sort of furred up sort of weird material, just to make it was clear, sure it was clear. Then using the screwdriver, we felt on the other side where we drilled, sort of in the proximate area, and then once you sort of felt that there was sort of like a definite dip which coincided with the point that you drilled through on the back, you can then just use a standard screwdriver just to pierce through. What you might want to do is just to sort of widen the screw hole, because the screw holes on the original are sort of more of an oval shape, so you might want to use either a bigger drill bit, or you know, sort of if you wanted to, you could actually just sort of cut a little bit extra out of the hole. So once that was actually done, and it was surprisingly successful actually, I trial fitted the door trim as I'm doing here, just to make sure that it lined up. I actually found that on the door trim itself there's like a sort of a peg in several areas which are sort of locating points, and you want to make sure that certainly for the armrest bit there's quite a fat one on there, which you might want to you know, sort of just make sure that the hole for that is drilled a little bit extra, just so you can actually get it in. What we started doing here is we started at the speaker grill end of the card, fitting the plastics back onto the card. Now, this is something interesting I noticed between my release of the door card on the original driver's door and the door card which had come off of 2001 model. For the top piece of trim, which is the piece of trim that sort of goes along the top of the card and actually hooks the card onto the door itself, there were fewer holes. So it would sort of seem that a bit of cost cutting has gone on at some point, and Nissan actually sort of specified fewer holes to be drilled. In fact, you can count them: 1, 2, 3 holes fewer were drilled on the original, on the manual door card. So I actually put these holes back in because what seems to happen is that weird fiberglassy stuff sort of holds the I think it's actually glued to this hardboard and holds the cloth in place, and that top piece of trim, which I'm just in the process of fitting, as you can see there, actually sort of clamps all of it together. And if you've obviously got fewer points where that sort of piece of trim is mounted, you've got fewer points where it's going to be pressing against the card. It's just an interesting thing that I noticed, and one that I corrected when fitting my new card. So effectively sort of, you know, doing the supplier who produce these cards for Nissan, effectively doing their job but just a little bit better. So once this was done, as you can see here, the card is looking, in my view, looking pretty good. The next stage was to basically get it back onto the car. Just showing you here the old card, and you can actually see that sort of vinyl at the bottom is covered in sort of scratches and nicks and other bits and pieces. It was just really not looking very nice at all. And just sort of showing you here that the actual cloth itself does sort of peel back slightly, so if you wanted to sort of re-stick the cloth, you can actually sort of do that if you needed to. And obviously just mounting up the other door trim there, so you can actually see what it looks like when you sort of mount it up, and just sort of showing you here how the trims go together, and also how that bottom piece of trim is interchangeable between a car that's got electric windows and one that does not have electric windows. Incidentally, I think this covers the first facelift models, which had a different lower door bin, and coil pack models. As you can see there's the card refitted, and in my view looking pretty good. There's the original card. You can see what I mean about the scratches and the sort of nicks in the vinyl. So I'm actually sort of very pleased with the result, to be honest with you. And for that is it for today. If you found this useful, don't forget to hit that like button, and also consider subscribing for more videos like this and more fascinating hobbies. Thanks for watching.